In this video, we are going to talk about removing paint transfer from any type of car paint and how to employ strategies like this to make a lot more money in your detailing business as a professional. What's going on, guys? Luke here with Wilson Auto Detailing. I want to take you into this light colored BMW. It's a light blue, and the paint transfer that is on the passenger side door is this dark blue color. Now, this is a maintenance client of mine, and I got a text from her saying, hey, can you please remove this paint transfer from the BMW? I want it off as soon as possible. And so she drove the car to my studio so that I could take care of it right away. Now, before I get into the business aspect of this, let's get into the actual implementation of how to do this. The first thing I want to highlight here is that when you have paint transfer like this, it's almost impossible to really see exactly what's going on underneath until the transfer is totally removed. And what I mean by that is that oftentimes when paint gets transferred onto other paint, there's also going to be scratches and sort of removal of the clear coat underneath. So you got to get underneath to figure out what's going on. Other times the transfer is basically just surface level, and that makes for an easy situation for a detailer. So the very first thing I'm going to do is use some Optimum No Rinse solution to lubricate my synthetic clay bar, my clay bar mitt, and I'm just going to use the clay bar as gently as I possibly can to see is anything coming off. The first thing that I can see as I'm removing the paint transfer is that yes, the transfer immediately started coming off from the synthetic clay mitt. Now, there are two types of chemicals I could have reached for. Number one, I could have reached for some paint lacquer thinner, or I could have reached for something like Rapid Remover. Rapid Remover is an adhesive remover, and lacquer thinner is obviously lacquer thinner. It's got acetone inside of it, and often you can remove paint on car clear coat with acetone if you're using a white terry cloth cotton towel. Don't use a colored towel. But before doing that, I want to take as gentle of an approach as possible, and that's why I'm using the clay bar. Now, what inevitably happened in this paint transfer removal is I realized about halfway through, this is all going to come off with a clay bar if I'm willing to be aggressive enough to pull it off with a clay bar. So all I'm going to do is introduce more Optimum No Rinse, introduce the clay bar with more force, and abrade the paint a little bit more to pull the transfer off. And now I want to come in for the after result so you guys can see what this looks like. So quick, so easy. Took me about 5 minutes or less just with the clay bar. And the reason why it took me even that long with the clay bar is simply because I want to be as careful as possible to do as little abrading as possible. But the trade-off here is I'm going to have to push the clay bar more than I would in any other situation to remove the transfer itself. Now, after the transfer is removed, I'm going to come in with just a small polisher and run some polish over the paint just to get rid of any abrasion. This is just a light cutting polish. I used Sonax, but you could use really any polish in this situation. The only purpose here is to make sure that I'm pulling off any of that micro abrasion, which is actually pretty easy to do with a clay bar in a situation like this because you are having to push down so hard. Now, let's look at the after result. It looks absolutely perfect. Not a lot to say about it. Glossy paint, looks fantastic. All the paint transfer is totally gone. Now, the reason why I want to highlight the business end of this is because this is a maintenance client, which means if anything goes wrong with this BMW, I am going to be the one that she calls. When you expand into what I would call sort of additional or peripheral services in the detailing world, transfer removal, headlight restoration, engine bay detail, scratch removal, surface level wet sanding, this is going to expand the options your customers can come to you with, and therefore allow you to charge for kind of these individual services at a much higher rate than you would ever be able to charge otherwise. And so jobs like this can easily turn into $100, $200, $300 an hour jobs, especially as we get into more individual scratch removal, because they take half an hour or less, but of course you're charging per job rather than for your time. And so it's one of the first things I always like to push detailers into as soon as they start building a maintenance list. We want to start advertising that these peripheral services or peripheral problems that customers might experience that are generally cosmetic and sort of in between or before you have to go to a body shop, that I as a detailer offer them, because it's just such an easy way for me to monetize, give them what they want, and keep them from having to worry about dealing with insurance and all sorts of stuff like that. Now, this particular paint transfer removal is something that even people could do at home because this represented such a simple and straightforward situation. But like I said, often you've got scratches underneath, and if you're going to have to abrade the paint to remove the paint transfer, you're going to want to polish afterwards. And of course, customers tend not to have those types of tools with them in the first place. So there you have it. That is how to remove paint transfer in the simplest way. If you guys want to grab any of the products or tools I used in this video, check out the YouTube description box below. And if you want a full list of professional products and tools I suggest, check out the Pro Detailing Toolbox in the YouTube description box below. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. And from Luke here at Wilson Auto Detailing, remember, a great detailer is always learning, and I'll see you guys in the next video.